So welcome to another edition of Open for Business. I'm your host, Marjorie Young. And today we have the president and CEO of the Matthew Reardon Center for Autism, Patty Victor. Welcome, Patty.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Marjorie.
So we're going to be talking about the 2019 Autism Conference coming up February 28th and March 1st. Give us a little bit of background about this.
This will be our fourth annual Autism Conference. We started in 2016. We have held it each year since then at the Coastal Georgia Center, which is formerly a part of Georgia Southern University. Now it's part of Savannah State University. But this year we're moving to the Savannah Convention Center over on Hutchinson Island. And we have doubled the size of the conference. We have twice as many speakers, twice as much space for registrants and exhibitors. We're very excited about what's coming up. Dr. Temple Grandin is our keynote speaker, and she is a celebrity in her own right. But we have a lot of other really good speakers who are coming, many of them nationally known, some internationally known. We have a lot of speakers who are themselves on the autism spectrum, and we are particularly glad to host those speakers because when adults with autism talk to educators and parents and health professionals about their childhood struggles, and as they do that, as they stand there as accomplished adults, it's very important that the people who love and care for and teach children with autism be encouraged and not get discouraged, because it's a long trek to help children with autism overcome the challenges that it presents in their lives, but it is very possible, and it happens every day.
Absolutely. So Dr. Grandin, she is a national celebrity, and I read that she is actually one of the most successful folks in the world with autism.
She certainly is very high profile. There are a lot of people in the world with autism. Some diagnosed and a lot of it not diagnosed. One of the strengths that comes with autism a lot of times is the ability to focus almost exclusively on a particular subject of interest. And so a really important piece of information to give everybody is that most people with autism don't have an intellectual disability. What they have is a communication and social disorder. They simply struggle to communicate verbally with body language and so forth, but they also struggle with social interactions. And we live in a culture that is very, very dependent both on verbal communication and on social interaction. An interesting statistic that I read earlier this year was that 37% of people with autism go to university, which I thought was a great number. I don't know what the general population rate is, but 37% is good. Of those who graduate with a 4-year degree or more, 85% are unemployed. That's a social skills issue. That's not about being able to do the work, master the work. That's about being able to get along and function in the workplace. And so it's important that we all be aware that 1% of the population of the United States will be diagnosed with autism. So that doesn't even include the people who aren't diagnosed, because we are going to work with them. If you're a teacher, they're going to be in your classroom. If you're a child, they're going to be on the playground with you. If you are a health professional, you will see them professionally. They go to the dentist, they go to the doctor. A lot of them will take occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. If you live in a community with 60 people, statistically, somebody in that community is going to have autism.
That's what the stats are now, 1 in 6.
The stats are 1 in 58.
That's significant.
So it is very significant, and we will encounter them and have people with autism in our lives. And so it's very helpful if we learn something about autism so that they aren't the ones who are having to do all the work.
So with this conference, will you teach some of these skills that the other 58 folks don't really know about? I mean,
yes, and what it's the conference itself is going to be for educators, for family members and caregivers, for health professionals, and for people who have autism. We have a whole track for self-advocates, and what we're seeking to do is help people understand what autism is, understand how autism impacts individuals, help people understand that autism impacts every individual differently and uniquely, but also to help give tools and strategies that can be used to in relationship with people who have autism. In our society, we have a real focus on the norm, which of course is nothing but an average. There is no normal. But if you get too far outside that average in our culture,
makes it harder.
The interactions become difficult. That's right. Life gets harder. And we expect those people, generally, we will expect those people who fall outside the range of what we call normal or average to do all of the work to try to fit back into that quote, normal range. Well, the truth is we need to step out of it a little bit more because there's a lot of beauty on those outer edges. There's a lot to be learned and enjoyed and treasured in people who are different from everybody else and from each other, as we all. I mean, you and I are different from each other. We're similar in ways, but we're very different from each other, which is the joy of getting to know you, right? I have a natural desire to know you. If I had autism, I probably wouldn't have that same natural desire because that's just not necessarily. That's just one of the typical symptom of autism is a person is simply not that interested in social interactions.
So is it usually diagnosed as a baby or a 1-year-old, 2-year-old?
Average diagnosis age is still 4 years in the United States, 4 years old. It can be diagnosed very early. Even symptoms will show up. If you know what you're looking for, symptoms will show up before first birthday.
What are some of the symptoms, just to help people watching?
Children who don't make eye contact. That's sort of a stereotypical symptom, but it actually can be children who don't make eye contact, or it can be children who won't let go of eye contact. So again, the eye contact is disordered. It's not, I look at you, I look away, I look at you, I look away. I either won't look at you or I won't look away from you. Children who just don't seem very aware of their surroundings. They really are far more internal than, if you drop a book, they might look up, they might not look up at the sound. If you point to an airplane in the sky, a child with autism will probably not follow your finger to see where you're pointing. That's a real simple indicator of a developmental delay. Children who begin to babble and talk between the ages of 1 and 2, but then say at about 20 or 22 months, they're instead of their talking and their sound making increasing, it begins to decrease and frequently fall silent. So the speech that they have developed, or that pre-speech that they've developed between the ages of 1 and 2, actually goes away, where for a typically developing child, language between the ages of 2 and 3 just explodes. And so with a child with autism, you won't see that. Now in older children, and in older persons with autism, again, it's a communication disorder. You may find someone who won't talk or who can't talk or doesn't want to talk. On the other hand, you may find someone that will not stop talking. A disorder. They don't have the filters to say, don't speak now. It's your turn, Marjorie, you talk. No, I'm not going to let you talk, Marjorie. I'm going to talk constantly, and I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about, whether you're interested or not, and I will not be aware that you aren't interested.
Interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah, I know. It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
As I understand it, there's actually a spectrum on the
There
autism
is.
scale. How do you describe that?
Spectrum from our perspective, or from my perspective, the spectrum relates to the kind of supports that a person needs. You can have, and to the impact.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people who have autism who do have intellectual disabilities. Autism can be one of several diagnoses. It doesn't necessarily travel by itself. It travels frequently with ADHD or ADD. They're very first cousins, but also with some other disorders that are not defined, but that do show similar symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
If on one end of the spectrum, you will have people who are profoundly affected by autism. They are nonverbal. They have intellectual challenges. They may have physical challenges. There are some skeletal and muscular issues that travel frequently with people with autism, which is why so often children with autism will receive both occupational therapy and physical therapy to try to strengthen those muscles and straighten those, get those bones and tendons and ligaments tight and strong. So there are some of those things. And those are some of the physical symptoms that a good pediatrician will pick up at a very, very early age, at a well baby check, maybe at 6 or 9 months, if a child is not holding their head or sitting up with the strength that would be typical of a child. That would be an alert for a pediatrician to watch. On the other end of this, and then on the other far end, you have people who are very intelligent, but really don't want any social interaction. That would be the symptom that you would see on that really high-end intelligence. They may also have muscular and skeletal issues that need to be addressed. From a support standpoint, we think of the people on the, I'm going to call it the left end because we're in the United States and we go left to right, on the left end of the spectrum who are profoundly affected are going to require a lot of support and probably a lot of support for most of their lives. On the other hand, when you get down here to the really, really bright people who have the social impact and the communication impact, I'll use Temple Grandin as an example of that because she is clearly a brilliant woman. She did not talk till she was 4 years old and exhibited a lot of frustrated behaviors. When we're not able to communicate clearly and effectively as a substitute, we will do so with behavior. And that's where a lot of the behaviors that are associated or that are associated with autism come from. A person is not able to adequately verbally communicate what they need or what they want or what they want to say, for that matter, what they want to contribute. And so they'll develop behaviors that accomplish what they are not able to do verbally. And so part of the strategy, when I talk about helping people understand the impact of autism, these are places where we can help. If we understand that a particular behavior or that every behavior is an attempt to communicate something, then we will be more prone to slow down, look at the behavior, think about the circumstances, try to imagine what is it that this person is trying to communicate, or even just slow down and give them time to communicate. We live in a very fast-paced world. I remember when I was in graduate school as a teacher in education, we were told, when you ask a question as the teacher, wait 5 seconds for an answer. Give the student a chance to think about it and process and answer. And don't always choose the person that's, throws his hand up and can do it in 1 second, wait 3 to 5 seconds. Well, for children with autism, you may need to wait 15 to 20 to 30 seconds. And with some children in a classroom, And when I say children, because the Matthew Reardon Center is a pediatric organization, but a lot of what I'm saying is also holds true for adults. A lot of adults have learned to cope and have strategies that they use to help them minimize the impact of autism. But internally, they're not that different from a lot of what I'm describing, because one of the things that happens with autism is processing slows down. It's not that every step isn't there. It just simply isn't shooting off like a rocket. It's in our classrooms here at the Matthew Reardon Center. The teachers get real tickled. At times they'll ask a student a question, and eventually they move on. The student hasn't answered the question, and 10 minutes later the student raises their hand and they've got the answer, because they've just been sitting there mulling it over, thinking it through, and the teacher's long gone. She's down the road at a different place, but that student is there, and that student got to the correct answer. But it took a while, and it may be because he goes around his elbow to get to his hand, where someone else goes from their nose to their finger, and because we think differently. I call myself a linear thinker. I think shortest route between two thoughts would be a straight line, right? Other people, some of my favorite people, creative people, which I am not, creative people think in what I call circular, because they just take in so much more beauty and possibilities, and it just is, and that's just an example of how you and I might think differently. And so it's important for not just family members, but all of us to understand that we know people with autism, even if they don't know they have it. And we need to learn how to slow down and delight in those people, to encourage those people to enjoy their differentness, rather than trying to make them change. But we also, at the same time, want to help them achieve their potential. And they do need assistance. I mean, if you don't know how to speak and communicate clearly, you probably would benefit from some speech therapy, because speech therapy.
The center that you work, with the Matthew Reardon Center, do they all that information?
Yes, speech pathology, speech therapy is a standard part of curriculum here, because speech therapy is not just about how do you form words, how do you put a sentence together. It's about how do I have a conversation with someone else. For our older students, there's a lot of focus on how do we talk to each other. How do teenagers talk to each other? I know a lot of teenagers that would benefit from speech therapy that don't get it, and they don't have autism. What is appropriate social interaction? What is, if my mouth is saying this sentence, what should my face look like? Should I be smiling if I'm happy? Should I be frowning if I'm happy? These are things that typical people absorb through osmosis. We figure it out. People with autism don't absorb it the way typically developing people do, for the most part. And so they have to be studied. They have to study facial expressions. They study body language. They study voice intonation. They study, and one of the things that we work on in speech here with our older students is how do you order off of a menu? How do you talk to the checkout person in the grocery store? What kind of verbal interaction do you have? Because our kids haven't been watching their parents like a lot of children do. Their minds are somewhere else, maybe on the fluorescent lighting that is hurting their eyes, or on the noise that is so loud for them. So it's important. In the conference, we're going to have, Temple Grandin is going to be there, but we have lots of other speakers. We do have speech pathologists. We have occupational therapists who will be there speaking. We have a number of self-advocates who will be talking about their experience, but also talking about legal issues that impact persons with disabilities, not just autism, but persons with disabilities, guardianship planning, estate planning relative to taking care of your dependents who may have autism and who maybe are not going to live independently. We have self-advocates who live very independently. Daniel Windler will be with us for the 4th year. Daniel is working on his PhD right now at Fox University and has written several books on social interaction. He was diagnosed when he was 14 and decided that he wanted to figure out social interaction. So he began to study his peers and very methodically discerned the secrets of social interaction, those innuendos, those little tiny steps. And then he sat down and he wrote them in a book that's a lot like a how-to manual. And so Daniel will be there speaking for the 4th time. He has 2 TED Talks out, so if anyone's interested in hearing Daniel, you can Google Daniel Windler TEDx, and you'll get to see him in action. He's delightful. We have several authors. Paula Kluth will be with us. Paula is a nationally recognized inclusion classroom teacher. She's written a number of books on teaching and learning in the inclusion setting, which is going to be particularly important for classroom teachers. Here in Savannah, within our public school system, we have 4,500 children with individual education plans. Now, not all of those children have autism, but all of those children have special needs when it comes to learning in the classroom, and they are going to be in every classroom. And so Dr. Kluth will be presenting strategies and tools for teachers who are inevitably going to have these children in their classroom who learn differently from other students. And so
they can get CEUs for this too, correct?
And there are continuing education units for educators, for occupational and physical therapy, for speech therapy, also for social workers. We will be offering CEUs for social workers. We are also offering them through Babies Can't Wait, which is in the state of Georgia, an early intervention program that a lot of people are interested in, and that is very, very beneficial to the citizens of Georgia. It's one of those things that Georgia is doing well and is working to do better. But Babies Can't Wait is a wonderful program that is funded through the Public Health Department by the state of Georgia.
So let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
Your center, the Matthew Reardon Center for Autism, is the only accredited school in the Southeast, I believe. Is that correct?
The Matthew Reardon Center operates Advanced Academy, and Advanced Academy is the only accredited year-round day school for children with autism in Southeast Georgia. There are a number of schools in the metro Atlanta area, but outside of metro Atlanta, there are very few resources. And in Southeast Georgia, there are no schools for children with autism. And thank you for asking that question. I'll tell you a little bit about our school, because all of our children come to us from other school settings. We can take 5-year-olds. We generally don't. We are a provider for the Georgia Special Needs Scholarship Program, which is also known as Senate Bill 10. And in order to qualify for that scholarship program, a child must spend a full calendar year in a public school in Georgia. If they spent that full calendar year in the public school, and when I say a calendar year, it can be January to January, or January to December, or September to May, but it does have to be for a full school, the equivalent of a full school term. If a child has an individual education plan and the parent is not pleased with the progress or thinks that their child is not being adequately served, then that scholarship is available to the child to take to an approved provider. An approved provider can be another public school, it is or private school. And so that is all of our students, 100% of our students are on that scholarship plan, which is what helps them, which is what enables them to be here. It costs us about $30,000 per student per year to provide all of the services that we provide because our students do receive occupational, physical, and speech therapy as well as music therapy here. And if a family's insurance does not cover that, then we absorb those therapeutic costs, in addition to having a 3-to-1 student-teacher ratio with a very, very highly trained staff. So children come here who are not succeeding in their current school setting, and we work with them very intensely on their issues. And we have the full spectrum. We have children who are profoundly impacted by autism. We have children who are very bright, but their generally behaviors have interfered with their ability to learn in a school setting. We generally advise families to not put their child here if the child is performing at grade level. We make other recommendations for social therapy, communication therapies that can be had outside of the home. Or even last week I met with a parent whose child is in a public school here who didn't, and we just simply advised her on how to go to her school and ask for the help. And I've heard from her since, and the staff, the faculty at the school where her child is, was delighted. They had no idea that the child was struggling like he is. And so sometimes it's just a matter of us giving advice. But for our kids, our goal here is to help children overcome and master the challenges that autism has created in their lives and then leave. Average stay here is about 4 years. We aren't looking for children. Success for us is when a child is ready to leave and go back out into the larger setting, because that is where we're going to live. Exactly. So,
in the time that we have left, please let everybody know how they can get tickets to this 2019 Autism Convention.
Okay. The Autism Conference, 2019 Autism Conference, will be held February 28th and March the 1st. That's Thursday and Friday. It will be at the Savannah Convention Center. In order to register for tickets, you would go to 2019autismconference.com, and you will see there's a selection of, you can buy a full two-day ticket. There are one-day options. We have special discounts for public school teachers for one day, because it's hard for teachers to be out of the classroom 2 days in a row. And then we also have tickets for just those who want to see Temple Grandin. There are a number of people who've said they'd like to see her, but they don't have the full 2 days that they can take off. So you go to www.2019autismconference.com and you can buy tickets. And we're filling up, so I encourage people to go soon, because we've had a wonderful response, and so we're looking forward to a full conference.
It sounds like a really important learning opportunity, not just for the teachers, but for everybody. And I encourage everybody to attend this.
Yeah, it's a great networking event for parents who want to meet other parents, for parents who want to talk to teachers other than their child's teacher. For teachers who want to talk to teachers, for health professionals who want to talk to parents, for self-advocates who are looking to build a network. Oh, very quickly, one of the things that we're doing, we're very excited about at this year's conference, is we are going to host a reverse job fair. And what that is where self-advocates, young adults or older adults with autism, prepare and come, and they sit down at the table, and employers who have already agreed that they are interested and want to hire persons with special needs, that their work setting is one that will work with the special needs of individuals, will come to those people. So we're very excited. We're going to be doing a couple of training sessions in preparation for the self-advocates, but it's one of those things where the self-advocate doesn't have to make the approach. The potential employer makes the approach, which takes a lot of the stress out of the employment interview. So if you are a self-advocate and you are interested in participating in this, please go to that 2019 autismconference.com website, and you will find there the information that you need to make contact so that you can participate in the reverse job fair.
Wonderful. Patty, thank you so much for being on Open for Business, and we will see everybody at the conference.
Thank you. Thank you. See you there.